Listen up, real estate investors, entrepreneurs, and agents. You're in the right place, unlocking the secrets to real estate investing and entrepreneurship. Welcome to the Titanium Vault, hosted by RJ Bates III. Here's RJ.
We're excited to have Brandon Richards on the Titanium Vault today. Brandon, how are you
excited to be here? Pretty good.
So why don't you fill us in a little bit about your business and what it is specifically that you do?
Right now, I'm kind of like wearing a couple of hats, but primarily flipping at the moment, representing a couple sellers right now. But started out as a realtor, but now just concentrating on wholesaling and flipping myself.
So walk me through the process of how you became a realtor and what made you decide to focus on rehabbing and wholesaling.
As a realtor, I moved out here December 2015 from Arizona. I was licensed out there for 2 years, but it wasn't even really part-time. I owned a carpet cleaning company, and I maybe sold like 4 houses, and they're all to my buddy. So got out here to Texas, and I never did the whole college thing. I went for a couple semesters, but I don't have any degree, so I was like, well, what am I going to do? Don't really want to go back to what I used to do, and I couldn't bring my carpet cleaning company with me because it's a franchise and it's based off of zip codes and such, so it stayed there. And so I got out here, like, well, better hit it as a realtor. And at the time, I'm like, man, I'm just going out to Texas. It's a new market. I don't know anybody, but I'm going to dominate. Anyways, I got out here. I did not dominate. It took me like 3 months to get my license because the Texas and Arizona had to communicate back and forth on if I left Arizona in good standings. Right. Went to Champion School of Real Estate in Plano. I didn't go online classes because I too ADD. I would never be able to finish. So went into their classroom. I forget how many times. I think it was actually every single day for like a month. But 3 months later, license, jump over at Century 21, and as a new realtor in a new state, it's tough. It's extremely tough, and showing buyers a dozen or more houses was a beating, and then to just have them go, oh, you know what, it's not my time, I don't want to buy. I'm like, man, this is one giant uphill battle just to get a sale. Anyhow, but I was at Century 21 for like 2 months, and great brokerage. Had a lot of fellow realtors in there. Everybody was great and helped me out. But in the back of my mind, I was like, man, I don't want to do this forever. And even before I moved out to Texas, I wanted to flip. The buddy I sold 4 houses to, me and him were always daydreaming about, okay, let's get a flip, let's get some rentals, let's get into multifamily. And right before I left, I had just heard about wholesaling. I was like, hey, Matt, you heard about that thing, wholesaling? You can sign a contract and no money, you just got the earnest in it. I was like, yeah, I heard about it. And so I thought about that for many months when I first got out to Texas. And finally, I want to say it was like 2 months into being at Century 21, I moved over to a more investment-friendly brokerage. And I just started attending every single, and it might be bad advice to some people, but I was attending every single, quote-unquote guru event. I wasn't paying for any of them. I was just going to all the one-night seminars, and I would go to the 3-day weekend ones, and right. All the ones I could go to for cheap or $100. I was just going. And that first summer, summer 2016, I was probably going to at least 2 a week at the time. On top of the seminars and stuff, I was going to just networking events, trying to meet other realtors, trying to meet other people that were in the business of investing. And so I just absorbed everything I could, take notes. And I remember really the turning point for me was I went to and I won't say which one, but I went to a 3-day weekend one. They were pitching some huge $54,000 program.
Right.
I'm like, man, this guy, he practically gave up his whole business in the 3-day weekend if you had paid attention and written down everything he told you to do. And I remember him saying, "Is like," and I forget this numbers, and he was like, 8 or 9 out of the 10 of you will never do anything that I'm teaching you here. And I was like, there's no way I would be that 8 or 9. So
right.
I went home. I took all the websites and all the little bits of information that I learned there. I got a website up the next day, and based off of the knowledge from there and a couple other people, I just started going at it. That was summer last year. It wasn't really going anywhere. I was like, man, this is hard. And I knew a bunch of people were mailing to the pre-foreclosures and stuff like that. And I was like, man, there's so many people mailing. If I start mailing, I'm just going to be, one of 30 people showing the houses. Why am I going to mail? And then, so for months, I was like, okay, I'm not going to mail. And it's not worth it. It wasn't until January of this year that I had started mailing, which really changed the whole game real quick. Everybody is mailing, but not everybody's mailing the same pieces. Not everybody's reaching the right person. Some just don't have the ability to communicate with people properly. Anyhow, there's many times where I was at the kitchen table per se, with other investors just waiting to, place their bid or whatever.
Right.
And I started grabbing properties. Actually, my very first one came in through my website, and she was behind on payments, but the bank hadn't started the foreclosure process, hadn't given her an auction date. And it was just an inquiry off my website, the same website I built way back in the day from that one seminar. It was On Carrot. That's the site I use.
Yeah. Yeah,
it's just it's like a lead capture CRM type of deal, and that's primarily what I use there. Anyway, that one, it was an inquiry on my site. I called within 10 minutes and asked all the questions. What you looking at, or why are you looking to sell? Do you know how many months you're behind? Do you know what the reinstatement is? What's the payoff? And then he got down to, what do you want to sell it for?
Right.
And she says, well, I owe $38,000. And before I had called, I'd already pulled up the tax records and, ran the comps and everything. She's like, well, I owe $38,000. And right then my jaw dropped. I was like, holy smoke. Okay. So, what are you looking to sell for? I'm thinking I ran comps and it was worth $185.
Oh, wow.
And, and then, she's like, well, I'd be really happy if I could walk away with 20 or 25,000, but I don't know if that's possible because my house is really dirty. It's, it's pretty trashed. And, I was like, okay, no big deal. I've been in a lot of houses. I'll just swing by, come take a look. Anyways, showed up and, made a $63,000 offer, and she took it. The house was trashed. I actually have a YouTube video that's been, that I've floated around Facebook, and I've got over 45,000 views on it because it is that bad.
Wow.
And yep. That was February this year. Before that was my first direct to seller wholesale.
So you wholesaled it. You didn't rehab it?
Correct. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. And before that, I had co-wholesaled other properties with some guys in the office because I still didn't know the ins and outs of everything, and so I was just finding buyers for some of these other guys' wholesales. Anyways, next day, it was the next day or the following day, within 2 days, I had my end buyer at 105, and
wow.
Closed, I don't know, 12 or 13 days later or something.
Did you find it, or did you double close?
It was assignment. Yep. The buyer I knew. Yeah, the buyer I knew personally. And I was so new to the game. I told him what I bought it at and what I wanted to sell it at. And he was like, okay, I'll give you 100. I was like, come on, man. Let's do 105. Anyways, after a little bit of negotiation, signed it at 105. Sent me the $5,000 non-refundable, and closed 2 weeks later. Yeah, $42,000 assignment, and that was obviously a game changer for me, going from nothing to $42,000 in the bank all of a sudden.
Yeah, that's a pretty awesome story for your first real legitimate lead.
Yep.
You know, making that commitment to go full time into the investing side of the game. That's a pretty awesome story. Walk me through, how did you locate your buyer? You said you kind of personally knew him. Did you know him from real estate, or was it just circumstance that you knew someone that was in real estate?
Just through networking. I probably found him on Facebook. You know, I'm super active on Facebook.
Very much so.
Yeah. So that's pretty much where I've made my name.
Yeah.
And that's where I've met everybody, you know, other than those networking events. But, yeah, we met on Facebook.
Walk me through on Facebook. Let's talk about that a little bit. That's how you and I met. You've kind of coined the name, The Connector. So walk me through what does that mean to you, and why do you call yourself The Connector?
It all stemmed back from a Bigger Pockets property that I found. Guy was selling a townhouse. You know, it was roughly $35,000 below market value, and I had shown it to a couple people, but ultimately they didn't accept our offer, and so I forgot about it. Anyhow, a week or so later, the buyer I swung over said, "Hey, that seller called me back, and you know, we bought the house." I was like, "Oh, awesome, man!" And I wasn't even thinking about, "Oh, dang, I didn't get paid there," but you know, felt pretty good finding a seller, a buyer, and connecting my buyer to the seller. And that buyer, actually, I've sold several properties to since then. But you know, other than connecting those two together, I'm always connecting hard money lenders to some of my buyers when I was still at the other brokerage.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, I network so much, and I know, you know, quite a few people. I feel like I've always been able to be somebody that everybody can go to find the right people. So I don't know. One day I threw the hashtag up and let it go for like a week or two, and didn't really go anywhere. I was like, you know, this hashtag thing. And even then I was like, hashtags, why am I hashtagging this crap? Anyway, now hashtag everything. But I think somebody called me out at a re-event one day. It's like, "Oh, look, it's the connector." I was like, "Oh, dang, this is sticking. I guess I better keep going with it." And
awesome.
yeah, so it kind of stuck, and that's what I'm known as now.
That's awesome. Well, as a fellow investor in the same market, you know, you and I are friends on Facebook, and ever since I've seen you start using the hashtag, I have to admit, I've been a bit envious of it. I think it's a great hashtag for what we do. As investors, wholesalers, rehabbers, whatever it is, we are the connectors of the different people in our industries, and then solving people's problems. So I think it's very creative. So it was definitely one of the things that stood out to me about you and the brand that you're building for yourself. Next thing I'd want to talk to you about is the fact that you are a realtor and an investor.
Yeah.
Talk to me about the benefits of that and the negative aspect of that. Because as an investor, I am not a realtor. I have realtors that I work with. So walk me through what that's like on a day-to-day basis, and how you feel about that.
In the beginning, I'd be reading the forums and listen to other people, and a good majority of people thought that being a realtor and trying to wholesale and doing your own investments was a negative, you know, something that would hinder certain situations, because as a realtor, we have the fiduciary duties to protect the public. And part of that is always providing the knowledge that what their property is worth as is and repaired. So that was one of the things that kind of hindered me in the beginning, because I was scared to make sure I wasn't messing anything up. But ultimately, I just embraced it. So now every single appointment I go on to, rather than just throwing in the conversation, like, hey, I'm a realtor, this and that, so, I know how to do these contracts pretty well. It's part of my options when I go to that negotiation table is I'll outline, every option based off of their motivation, time frame, budget, everything. So I get a couple listings off of it, but it's something that in reality has come to become an advantage in my business. Nobody's ever complained that I was a realtor or thought that I was trying to be shady in any way, because I would always break down, like, this is what I plan on selling it for, and this is what you could sell it for if you were to put the money into it. And if you were to list it as is on the MLS, whether with me or any other realtor, this is probably what you would get. And some buyers, they'll have me walk the whole house with them and say, hey, if I did want to try to find the money for the rehab, what would you recommend I do? And actually, I've had a couple people call me like a month later after I had lost communications with them and say, hey, I painted my house that color you recommended. I really appreciate it, or whatever. But yeah, it's been an advantage. Got a couple listings, but as long as you're outlining all their options and not trying to sway them, because obviously when I go to their house, I want to buy the house. I want to either keep it or wholesale it. But I'm not pushy at all on any options. And if it comes down to a situation where, and mostly what I market to is pre-foreclosure, so there's some urgency as far as time goes. But if they've got 2 months, I'm like, hey, you're in a really good neighborhood. I'd recommend, based off of time frame and your amount of equity, and that you list it. Whether you list it with me or anybody else, this is probably your best option. And this is after I've submitted an offer to them, of course. And but the ones that I have ended up listing, they've made some considerable money. I think the first one is out in Heartland. They made $39,000. And I got another one in Frisco. They walked away with like an $89,000 check. So, I
saw that one on Facebook, and that was a great story. Why don't you dive in a little bit more on that Frisco one and how that came about? That to me, the fact that you were able to make a client of yours $89,000, and it seemed like they were actually semi unaware of that possibility. So walk us through that deal.
Yeah. They were in pre-foreclosure. The bank have already scheduled an auction date 2 months out, and house was worth, I forget the exact numbers, but I think house is worth about 305. I think I offered 240, and their balance was 186, and I think they had something like 12 or 18,000 in reinstatement or something, but. I offered my 240, and when you're at the table, you're always judging. You're reading them. You're trying to figure out what their thoughts are on what you're saying. Are they thinking you're BSing them, or do they understand even what you're saying to them? But yeah, they didn't. The 240 didn't make them super happy, although they would have walked with 45,000 roughly. But I felt like being in their situation 2 months out, that listing would be to their advantage. And so we listed it as is, below market value. I think we shot it out at like $295 or something. Anyways.
Right.
Yeah. So, based off of the 2-month time frame, I was like, hey, I think it's, obviously definitely in your best interest to try to sell it high and, get some money, get out of this massive rut you've got yourself into. And, if a month passes and we don't sell it, my offer is always there. So, threw on the MLS. 2 weeks later, had it sold. And I was a cash buyer, 3 weeks later from there, closed it. And they got a nice little check there.
So the moral of this story is because of your ability as both an investor and a realtor, you were able to sit down, give them multiple options, and even though the preferred strategy for you as an investor wasn't what they accepted, you were still able to monetize that lead and create something positive for both your client but also for yourself and your business. I love those kind of stories. And I think that's the biggest thing to take away from the fact that you're both a realtor and an investor, is that you have just put more tools in your toolbox to help motivated sellers. So
right. Yep.
I think that's an awesome aspect of your business, that some people limit themselves and don't look at getting their license as a possibility. So kudos to you for handling that situation and monetizing that lead. Let's talk about your rehabbing business a little bit.
Okay.
I've seen some of your work. You do great work. Looks like you're really hands-on with your work. So walk me through that. When you decide that you're going to rehab a property, how do you break out whether or not you're going to do certain parts of the work and sub things out to some crews?
Well, a lot of what you're referencing there is that first one I just closed last week, and that one's really, it's a long story because although I just made back in February that $42,000 assignment, I'd used a lot of that at paying off debt, because when I came to Texas and I left Arizona, I had literally $0 in the bank because I had just gotten out of divorce and I gave her all the money. So spent a lot of them on catch up on debt, and then when I was at the closing table, long story short, payoff wasn't what it was supposed to be. The day before auction, I had to make a yay or nay decision on whether I'm going to go forward and buy this house. And if I didn't, this guy was losing his VA loan, and I was like, oh man, this is like crap. I might lose some money here. I don't even have any money. So anyways, I wouldn't be able to sleep if I didn't close on it. So I closed on it. And then at the time I was panicking because now my budget's blown. Should I just hold? And cleaned it out. Was looking at it. It's trash. There's wood rot everywhere, water damage. The cabinets were falling in. The countertops weren't adhered to the wall anymore because of all the water damage. And so I pulled out the cabinets. I was like, oh man, crap, now the wall's bad. Anyway, I started doing the demo, and I was just going to gut it and kind of try to hotel it that way. And it's actually what my hard money lender was recommending. It's like, hey man, you should probably just get in here and clean it out and hotel it. It's probably your safest bet, because at the time our ARV was something like 125, and that's what I was seeing. But he was seeing something like, hey man, I don't know if we can even get 115 on this thing now. I'm like, man, where are you getting these numbers from? And although he had given me a rehab and as part of a rehab budget that went in the escrow for the hard money, it didn't cover all of it, because by the time the payoff went up, he got a little cold feet, and asked me to put $15,000 in an escrow account as a draw system and for his security. So it really drained all my money. I think I left that closing table with like $9,000 in the bank or something, and I was panicking.
Yeah.
So, so we get into it, and I knew the guy that did foundation, so he allowed me to pay him through the draw, and he didn't want payment right away, so we got the foundation done. I paid him a draw. I knew the roofer, so I paid him through a draw. And I just started getting these people in there. I just started paying them through draws, and instead of having to front it. And some people here and there would want some money. I ended up going through like 5 plumbers, a couple electricians, 2 different texture guys, and I just made it happen. And the reason I was doing so much hands-on is because I didn't have any money to like pay like a GC or start, coughing out a bunch of cash for a bunch of contractors. So all the demo we did ourselves. We were pulling walls, cabinets, even down at the end. I was, we did all the painting. We put in all the doors. Every single door in the house was replaced. We demoed the addition in the back where the fireplace was. I go to the bathroom. I pulled all the drywall out of the kitchen. I reframed the walls because there was horrible water damage in there. There was no insulation, or the insulation had so many dead rats and rat pee in there. I had to pull the insulation out. It was just a nightmare. And then, so I taught myself how to frame. I hung the drywall. I taped in bed, gutted the bathroom, reframed the bathroom too because it had water damage everywhere. When I was getting tile guys to go in there and do like the shower surround, they're like, "Hey, you're gonna have to put up some hardy board." I'm like, "Crap, that sounds kind of easy." And he was like, "Oh, you also got to put this other stuff in there to seal the water." I'm like, "Oh man, I gotta go find this," and then it'll be like $50. I'm stressing out. I'm trying to figure out, okay, right. I'd never done anything like this, so I'm like getting like makeshift. I'm cutting this hardy board with tools that you're not supposed to cut hardy board with, and yeah, just made it happen, and I did it all on the first one. Number one reason is I didn't feel like I had quite the budget to pull it off properly, and B, everybody was telling me not to be so hands-on, but I needed to be hands-on, A, to learn it, and B, and then I know how much it really costs to do a lot of these things for the next project. So now when I go to have some plumbing issues and somebody says like $4,000, I'm like, yeah, right, dude, that's more like $2,100 or something. I have a rough idea of what everything's going to cost. Right. And yeah, I didn't plan on doing any of the work in the beginning, but it just happened that way because payoff ended up being not 64,000 but 71,000. So it really skewed my numbers last minute, and it just happened.
Right. Well, I will say, because we have a background in our previous business. We were a general contractor. That's what I did before I got into real estate investing. And if you are going to rehab properties, it is very important for you to understand the process in which goes into rehabbing a property and the cost associated. You use the example of plumbing costing $4,000, and you actually know it's $2,100. That's just one trade. Imagine you multiply that over the 15 or 20 different things that can be done on a property, and that's just on a smaller one. You can lose all of your profit just out of ignorance. So very good point there. Another thing I wanted to talk to you about today, because I follow you on Facebook and you are so active on Facebook, it appears to me that the entrepreneur spirit within your family is across the board. So you're not just in real estate. You've mentioned your carpet cleaning business franchise in Arizona, which you still have, correct?
Yeah, sure do.
And if I'm correct, I believe your daughters have started a business as well. Is that correct?
Yeah. Last summer they did.
That's awesome. So real quick, because I think everyone will get a kick out of it, why don't you tell us what your daughters do for their first business?
Well, they're 10 and 11 years old, and it's a poop scooping business. So within our small little community, I think we pick up like 10 or 11 yards.
Man, that is awesome. I saw that. I think you posted something this past weekend, and I was just scrolling through Facebook, and I saw that. And man, that just, to me, that is so awesome that you're already teaching your kids at such a young age to go out there and have that entrepreneur spirit and to make something happen for themselves. That's just awesome. Brandon, I really appreciate you being a guest today. I appreciate you sharing everything about your business and giving us a great couple of stories, specific stories about deals that you've done. I really think that you have given an enlightenment in the fact of being a realtor and an investor, how that can benefit your business. And then also how it's important to be hands-on early on in your rehab business. So thank you so much for taking the time for being with us today.
I appreciate it.
All right, man. We'll talk to you soon.
All right. Thanks a lot.
Thanks so much for listening to the Titanium Vault with your host, RJ Bates III. For more info and to stay up to date, visit www.podcast.thetitaniumvault.com and on facebook.com/The Titanium Vault. If you enjoyed the episode, please rate and review, and we'll catch you next time on the Titanium Vault.